I think this is going to be a difficult video for me to do because the audience probably don't know what an API is, probably don't know much about Python, and conceptually it's quite hard to understand, I think. But what I'm trying to do is to get experience of using a programming language called Python to send a prompt to an AI service on the web called Gemini by Google. And I want to ask a simple question and just demonstrate that I can use a programming language to send a prompt to AI. And then there's a particular model of Google's Gemini that is for making artwork. And eventually, I want to send a prompt to create some artwork. But before I do that, I need to get experience of just using a very basic Gemini model and asking it a simple question and getting an answer. Then I can build on that experience to make code that will send a prompt to create artwork for me. I hope that makes sense. So I'll show you how I've gone about this. I haven't built it yet, but this is what I'll be doing today. So Python is a programming language which is very popular. Um, so I'm just going to use it. I use it a little bit now and then, but not for my hobbies. So this will be the first time I've installed it on my home computer. And then API is a fancy way of saying that I'm going to ask another website for information in a sort of a programmatic, computer programmy kind of way, rather than me directly going to a web page and typing in something into a text box and submitting it. I don't even know what API means. Probably did once, but um, doesn't really matter. Everyone just says API. And then what I did was I used an AI called Grok to ask it, give me an overview for a beginner on how to obtain Python and run a basic Gemini prompt on it via the API. And it gave me a long answer, and it told me what to do. I'll give it a go, but if it doesn't work, then I'll draw on my own life experience of using Python. Because when I've used it professionally, I've used something called Microsoft Visual Code Studio, I think it's called. And I wouldn't be surprised if when I get to the end of this, I'm using Python in that. But anyway, let's get going. And bear in mind, we're in December 2025. So what I'm doing here is using whatever Google Gemini free model I'm allowed to use in December 2025. So the prompt in this example is going to be, hello Gemini, tell me a joke about programming. Step one, install Python. So go to python.org to its downloads area, which is this website here, downloads. So I'll click downloads, I suppose. No, I don't want to donate today. How do I make that disappear? Oh, anyway, active Python releases. Well, there's loads of them. Which one do I use? Oh, and at the top it says download Python install manager. Let's see if the notes that Grok gave me help me at all. See, I think they're being too vague. I think Grok has been too vague. I think I need to click download Python install manager, and then I'll click and see what this thing is. By the way, um, you can ask if a website is safe. Python.org is the official safe, legitimate source of Python downloads. I'm just someone on a video, so you shouldn't just trust me if I tell you to go to a website and do something. Uh, And it has this tick, launch when ready. So I'm just going to go with that, see what happens. Hmm. Well, if my computer's going to reboot, then I'm just going to make sure I've saved these instructions. I'll say yes to update my settings. Do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Yeah, I'm very trusting today. I mean, they're telling me that they're going to add a directory. I'm going to make a note of this. I'll try to anyway. Um, add comments directly to your path now. I don't know what that means. I think I'll note all of this in case it's very important later. I'll say yes to add commands directory. Don't know what it means, but just say yes. Install the latest version of CPython. Yep, let's say yes to everything. Configuration checks completed. To run these checks again, launch Python install manager, blah, blah, blah. Make a note of all of this as well. View online help. No. Okay, so what does all this mean? What have I just done on my computer? Um, Python manager. Huh. Oh, right. Well, that's the thing I just ran in. It did say something about rebooting my machine. I could do that and see what happens. I restarted my machine, um, and now if I type py to Python, I've actually got a match that says Python and whatever the latest version is. I click it and we get to this, which doesn't mean much to me. I'll go back to my notes. So that's where I went to download the installer. During installation, check add Python to path. Very important. Well, it might be important, but nobody asked me. Unless it was one of those questions that I answered yes to. It's telling me to type bash at the terminal. The terminal is probably this black screen here, so type bash. Note that at the moment there are three of these arrow chevron things. Type bash. It's got no idea what I'm doing. So at this point, very confused. I need to find out if that Python path thing is set up because they said it's very important. And I think I'm probably going to install Visual Code Studio or whatever it's called because what I'm looking at here is a bit of a mess. Or I could exit out of this Python app and go to my CMD command prompt, which is a Windows terminal. Maybe they're talking about my Windows terminal. I can type bash there. No, no, I definitely need to use Microsoft's Visual Studio Code. I'm going to ask Grok for help. I've just used Python installer. It never seems to ask me if I want uh, to tick add Python to path. How can I test if that setting was set? Hmm. Okay, so it's telling me to go to my command prompt, CMD, Python hyphen version. Uh, yeah, so that's success because even though I'm in the MyCast directory, when I call the Python app in the environment variables of my operating system, it knows where the Python app lives. Um, so it's able to launch it without saying something like you have to put the full file folder path to the Python executable program for me to be able to run it. So that is a success at least. But like I was saying, I want to install Microsoft Visual Studio. Um, so let me go Google that. Okay, so I've searched Google and I've found well, it does AI overview these days, and it's telling me that there's an official site which they say is called visualstudio.com. And I've gone into Wikipedia to see where they think I should get it from. And they mention visualstudio.com as well. So I think I'll be okay to I think I'll be okay to follow the link that the AI has told me to follow, the official site. Well, I've got a Windows machine, so I'll click Windows, download and install. And it says install Git and all these other things. I think I'm going to want to do that, but we'll see. The reason I think I would need to do that is because, let me go back to the notes I made before. Um, yeah, it depends. The instructions here were telling me to use Bash. I don't know if my computer has Bash installed, and I don't know if by me installing Visual, whatever it's called, Visual Studio Code, I'm going to get Bash. But I do know that one way to get Bash is to install Git. I'm pretty sure I've read that recently when I was doing a bit of research. So I've got a feeling I might be coming back to this if I find that I can't run Bash terminal. But anyway, let's download and install Visual Studio Code. Um, Visual Studio Code installer for Windows. Then once it downloads, run it. You might need to do not a reboot, but I don't know. It's a bit vague. Don't really know what they're saying. I'll ignore all this stuff. I'll just keep it simple and just install the Windows Visual Studio Code. There's a download button here. Anything else I could click? There's a Python extension, which is probably relevant to me. This file is just downloaded. Yes, I accept agreement. It's going to install Visual Studio Code somewhere on my computer. That's fine. Go with the default. Just keep going with the defaults. This isn't as much fun as doing arty things on my weekend. but I think I need to get this done to speed up my artwork. Because if I can use AI to send 100 art requests overnight, that's better than me using my weekends sat at a computer manually sending the prompts. Right, it's installed now. I'll just um, drag the app window so you can see it in my video recording. So we've got all these things here, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to need the Python extension that it mentioned. So I'm going to exit out of this and I'm going to click on, I've just clicked on that Python extension thing. Um, so Visual Studio Code, it's not Python itself, but it's a nice user interface for running the Python that I installed about 10 minutes ago. Ah, but I'm not sure that I've actually installed. Yeah, I have installed it because I just opened it. So why was it asking me if I've got Visual Studio Code? I must have it. Open Visual Studio Code. Okay. Ooh. Ah, there's an install button here. I think the other way to get it might have been to use this search box, but I don't really trust search boxes because you can do a typo and then install something that looks like Python, but it isn't really Python. Um, but there is this blue tick, which probably means that it really is Microsoft software that I'm installing. I'll chance it. I'm very, very confident that this really is Python because I never typed anything in to search for it. It just offered it to me. I'm gonna, I'm not going to do any of these things. I'm just going to follow the instructions of my Grok essay because they tell me exactly what to do with regard to creating a Python file. So I'll just carry on with the instructions that I started off with. Okay, so I'm back where we started. So I've got Python now. Additionally, I've got that Visual Studio Code. And now open a terminal command prompt and type bash. So, ugh, I don't know. Because normally when I've used Visual Studio Code before, there's been an area for code here and an area for a terminal down at the bottom, but I don't see any of that. View terminal. So I went to view at the top there, and then I'll click terminal. All right. Well, it says terminal. So what else do I have to do? Type bash. Aha. So I'm going to use Grok again. Um, Grok. I am in Visual Studio Code. I installed Python extension, I am using the Visual Studio terminal window, and I typed bash, but the term bash is not recognized in American English as the name of a commandlet function. How do I solve this? Yeah, so we're back to Git, which I mentioned earlier. Install Git bash. It's telling me where to go for it. Again, I can ask on Google, is safe? Um, I'd say on balance, it's going to be, I don't really want to say it's going to be safe. I'm just going to say it's going to be safe enough. Because what you get nowadays is uh, bad people who contribute code to open source projects and they get trust, and then they get trusted with the whole of a code library. And Git has got loads of code libraries, and then they put something malicious into that very popular code library, which auto updates on millions of computers across the world. So that's my opinion anyway. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. But if that's true, then it's hard to say that something is safe. Um, but at the same time, got to move forward, got to progress in life. So yeah, I'm going to follow the link that Grok told me about, and then I don't need to set it to the default terminal in VS Code. Instead, I'll just make a note of all this. Could be handy later. And I think I'll also make a note. Try to make a note. Oh, try to make a note of this address in case I need it again in the future. Uh, Jumping about, but all I need to do is to go to this address. I am on Windows. Click here to download. Quite a lot of choices, but I'll just go with the top one. don't know what this winget is all about. I'll just make a note in case that matters. Now we go down with Git, let's gonna start using it. Hmm, makes sense. Okay, I'm going to download my Windows version of Git. Never done this before. I studied Git some years ago because it seemed to be a way of controlling software versions. You could branch off, develop. One person could develop a change to software in one bit of it, another person could develop a change in another bit, and they could merge their branches together. Um, I think I tried it as a on a sort of a command line prompt kind of way. Can't remember now. It's a long time ago. But I think the reason I'm getting Git here is just because it included with it is Bash, apparently. Not sure. Yeah, there's the download. So click on that. Yeah. Next. I'll just go with the defaults. Oh, choosing the default editor. Well, surely that's going to be Visual Studio Code. Not to be confused with something very similar, two options there with very similar names. Next. No idea what it's talking about. Click next. I think it probably has to be this default setting. Don't know. No idea what it's talking about there. So just go with the default. Go with the default. Default. Not sure about this bit. Mentions Python there. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll go with the default. Default. Oh, default. I don't really need to launch it, do I? I will launch it, see what it looks like. Hmm, don't know what that's about. I'll just press escape. Okay. So it looks like it has a dollar sign before you type something into it. I wonder if exit can be typed to exit it. Seems that way. So it's like that with Windows command prompt. So a bit of similarity there. So I'm thinking I will exit Python, exit Visual Studio Code, then go back into Visual Studio Code. I'm at that terminal that I reached before by using View Terminal. Happens if I type bash. Still doesn't like it. But I did take some notes about getting into bash. I think I did. Hmm. Maybe I didn't. Okay, let's go back to my grok question. Put it in my notes. Right. On the terminal panel, click the drop down arrow next to the plus icon. Terminal panel, drop down arrow next to the plus icon. There is a plus icon, and there is a drop down box. Git bash. Just a guess, and the dollar that's consistent with seeing bash has appeared. And then I suppose command prompt is probably just my Windows command prompt. I've never used PowerShell. Just so many things someone could spend their time doing. Life's very short. So now I can go back to the original instructions that I was trying to follow before. Open a terminal command prompt and type bash, which is basically not true. Let me use sort of a danger color, red, to remind me that that's not actually what I did. Python version. Okay, tells me the version of Python. So that bit is irrelevant. That's just an alternative. So use a grey there so I can ignore it in future. Get a Gemini API key. Now, this is a secret thing, so I'm not going to show you what my API key is when I get it. Apparently that's a very bad thing to do, to share it. But I will go to this website to do with API key. I went there a little earlier, so here we go. I'll just refresh. So when this web page loads up, it seems to think that I'm a professional developer, and I can't get past this dialog without saying I agree to whatever it's talking about. Continue. So I watched a tutorial to do with this about a week ago. You can see there's this create API key button, which I guess I'll be using. And then there's also a list of projects. And I guess one person could have more than one API key. Uh, and for, I don't know why, but they could have different projects that use different API keys. I don't really understand, but I do know that I need to have at least one project, and the project needs to know the key that it's supposed to be using when it's being used. Apart from that, I don't know anything. So go to here, sign in with Google account. Well, I use Gmail, so I'm already signed in to my Google account. Click create API key, which I'll do after. I'll stop this video and then I'll do that. And it says keep it secret. And then it tells me to install the Google Gemini library at the bash window. And then it tells me to write and run my first script. And then there's some code it wants me to run. But in that code, every now and then I have to paste in my secret API key rather than this text. I also noted here that the model I'm using is the free one, so I don't think I can do any generative AI art on it, but at least I can prove that I've got the necessary software on my computer to use Gemini, and then later I can use Grok and ask it to write me some Python code to run Gemini 3.5 Nanobanana, I think it is, to create some art for me. But have to start off slowly. Then it says that there's like so I'd be running the code by using this instruction when I'm in Visual Studio Code at that bash terminal. And it's saying I should see a joke printed because the prompt is tell me a short joke about Python programming. But it's saying that there's a better way to program, and that's I shouldn't put my API key in there. I suppose if someone somehow is looking at my computer program, if they've got access to my computer program, then they can see my secret API key. So they're saying a better way of doing it is on my Windows machine in the CMD command prompt to type this instruction here, replacing this bit with the API key. And then when I use code, instead of me explicitly saying my code, I can use this line here and it will grab my secret API key from where it's hidden on my laptop computer's environment operating system area. But I guess if I used another laptop, I'd have to um, run that run that code at my command prompt on that other laptop so that it secretly knows my API key. I hope that makes sense. And where would I plug in this replacement code? I'm thinking that I would no longer need this line of code here. Instead, I'd be using that line of code there. So that would just vanish from the script. Or is it, let's compare these two lines of code. Ah, okay. So I think this line of code and that line of code would vanish because the line below it kind of does both of those jobs, in my opinion. Anyway, I'll for now, I'll undo the bit that I pasted in, and just follow their instructions and see if it works. At that AI Studio website, when I clicked create key, it's asked me to give a name for the key. You can't see that because it's above where I'm screen recording. And then the other bit below it is choose an imported project. Probably just go with that default. That was probably the thing listed earlier, but I need the experience, so I'll say create a project. It's asking me to give it a name, so free fail test. Free fail test. And then I'll click create project and just carry on from there. So it says it's off what you can see, but there's a text box with name your key, and the name I chose for it is written there. Then below that, it says choose an imported project, and the project name that I just typed in is the default there. So now the project needs to know its key, and although I've given just a nice name that means something to me, it actually has to create the key. So I'll be clicking create key next, and that should be the last step. It will tell me the key and I will have to note it somewhere secretly. Okay, so let's rewind a bit. If you remember, next to this plus button in Python, there was this way to choose that I wanted the git bash terminal, and that $sign appeared. I could type Python, etc., and it tells me what version it is. And now it's waiting for me to ask for something else. So I now have my secret API key. The next thing I'm told to do is at that terminal in bash. I don't need to type bash. I don't believe I do because I'm already in bash. Pip install. Now, I've used pip install before. It's that when you install Python, what you install, or rather what you obtain on your computer, are loads and loads of libraries. And I'm not sure to what extent they live in the clouds or to what extent they live on my computer. But I know that sometimes if I want my program to use a particular code library, the code won't be able to run that code until pip install is used. And install, with regular software install, could take a zipped up packaged computer program and make it the real program on your computer. So it's a similar idea. This is going to install Google's library for generative AI. And when that's installed, it will mean that my Python code can then send requests to the Google generative AI. But if I didn't install this, I could type code in Python that says call Gemini generative AI, and it will just throw an error message and say, I really don't know what you're talking about. So I'm going to paste in down here next to the $. I'm going to paste that pip install instruction. I'm familiar with pip install. I've installed things in the past in Python. So give that a go. Bash. Pip command not found. Okay, that surprised me. Having said that, bash isn't something I would normally use. So let's go to this drop-down box again. I'm going to go to my regular Windows command prompt and try pip install Google Generative AI. Is that going to work? I'm trying to remember because years ago, before version 3 of Python, or around the time they just switched over to it, there was some advice about using a virtual environment when installing things, but so long ago. I'm just going to see what happens if I press return here. Pip is not recognized. Okay, I'll jump back to this bash thing and I'll ask Grok why it's not recognized. In Visual Studio Code, in the bash terminal, website, but it is not recognized. Python. Yeah, I've got Python. It's telling me to try this. This brings back quite recent memories where I've been using Google to find help on how to install things. And yeah, a tutorial will say use pip install. You use it, it doesn't work. So yeah, I can well believe that this is the way I have to phrase it to make it work. It's one of the reasons probably why I was reluctant to do this exercise today. I knew it was going to be a pain. All right, so put my cursor here next to the dollar and paste in. So instead of pip install, it's Python -n, then pip install Google Generative AI. Okay, it's doing something. While it's doing that, I'll look at the next part of the instructions. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll paste in what actually worked and grey out that bit. Maybe not. Grey out that bit. It didn't work for me. Create a new file called Gemini test.py. So I was different ways of going about this, but since I'm showing you Visual Studio Code, file, is it a new text file? Kind of. New file. It's a Python file. And I'm just going to click save on it and oh, save the file somewhere useful. See if I can send a prompt to Gemini free model. And I'm not going to give it a file extension. I think it will give it extension py. I've also used in the past something called Jupyter, but that's irrelevant. Just keep it simple. It will save it as a py file. And there we can see up there, .py. That's the file name. And the code. So I've broken the rules there. I've given the file whatever name I want. But I don't think that. The only thing is, when I come to run it, what I've done has got spaces in it, but I'll make life easier on myself if I use underscores. So what I'll do is I'll take file, and if I keep the name of the file short, I'll also be doing myself a favor. So let's call it Gemini free model test 01. Still a bit wordy. To save that. Yeah, because I know that later in the code I have to go to the bash prompt and run this program, and it's much easier for the computer to understand where the file name begins and ends if there aren't any spaces in it. Keep looking for where I'm meant to be. Write and run your first script. Paste this code. Python. Do I have to type Python? Really? Okay. I'll be replacing this bit here with my API key, or I'll test out my theory that these two lines can disappear. So the way to comment them out is to put a little hash sign next to them so that they don't actually do anything. Instead of that, let me just mark where I'm at. Instead of that, I'll copy their recommendation. So instead of over here, get rid of those Z's, paste this in. And the only way it knows my API key is because I'll be doing the instruction below to do with set at my command prompt, my Windows command prompt. Let me find the word set. Yeah, I'll be doing this instruction, but I'm not going to show you me doing that. I'll stop the video and do it now. Well, that was the easiest thing I've done all day. I just did it and it said success when I exited the Windows command prompt. Surprised how easy that was. Normally everything's difficult with computer programming. Um, so yeah, I think those can be ignored and that will do the trick it's meant to do. And it's good because then I can show you my code on screen. And it's going to go into this model of Gemini and it's going to send in the question, tell me a short, the prompt, tell me a short joke about Python programming, and then it's going to print on screen the response to the question. So I just need to copy everything from the final print line all the way up to here. I guess the word Python at the top might be valid. It might be a way of telling Visual Studio that it's meant to be using Python, but I just got a bad feeling about it because I never used to need to do that. So I'm going to comment that out with one of those, I think people call them pound signs, but I call them hash characters. Because in the UK, pound means something else, a different keyboard character. And then and pip install probably worked. I mean, it doesn't say anything like success. Oh, here we go. Warning, the script normalize installed and oh, I don't know what it's talking about. That might be a problem later. I'll I'll make a copy of that because that could be a sting in the tail for later on. Got no idea what it's talking about, but I'm sure Grok can help me out if I need help with it. So here's the program. I'm going to click on problems. No problems have been detected. Hopefully, but is that talking about the terminal or is it talking about this area here? Don't know. I do know what run does, but see, I could go run without debugging to run the program, I think, or I could click this to run the program, run Python file. I'll see what these instructions want me to do, but that's how I would normally in Python run a program. So whatever these instructions here tell me, I will probably prefer to do it the way I usually do it with Python in Microsoft Studio Code, Visual Studio Code. So they've said save a file and run it in the terminal by doing Python and then the name of the file, which in my case would be this. But I'm just going to click this run button. Problems, output, debug, terminal. No API key or ADC found. Told you it was too easy. What I did at the Windows command prompt. So back in Grok, I am using Visual Studio Code with Python. I ran my Python program and there is an error. This is looking familiar. I'm not going to use it in my code if I can avoid it because I want to do my job properly. I don't want to be rubbish. So let's see if my code looks like that. Yeah, my code looks like that. In git bash, run this command. Replace with your key, export. I'm going to give this a go. So I'll stop the video and see if running that in my git bash window, i.e. see, at the moment we're in Python terminal, but I would need to go to bash terminal, I think. Is it saying git bash? So I would go click on bash here the drop-down box area, go to the bottom where my $sign, meaning I'm in Bash, is available, and then I can copy their suggested code, and after I stop the video, I'll put my API code into this bit and give it a go. The Grok advice is saying that there's a long-term way for me to store the API key rather than it just being known temporarily while I run the session. Maybe things are getting too complicated here because I really thought what I did at my Windows command window should have been sufficient, but I'm going to use this long-term way of doing it, which maybe I'm making life complicated for myself. So in the terminal, this is a new, I exited and reopened for software because I didn't want you to see all the stuff that was in my terminal window. I'm in the Bash console, I'm over here, trying to paste this bit here. Not doing very well. Okay, I'll type it, it's quite short. Tilde, I'm not sure where that is on my keyboard. Slash dash. No, forward slash dot bash rc. Ooh. Don't know what that is. Scroll to the bottom. I think I am at the bottom because there's nothing in it. Add this one line at the end. Something like that. And then save and exit. Control and O. Control and X. Control O, Control X. Okay, I'll try that now. That was harder than I thought. I was trying to do a paste of the instruction and it wasn't pasting, and in the end I had to right click expecting to then be offered the option to paste, and as soon as I right clicked, the thing on my clipboard appeared in there. It was really weird, but anyway, the other thing was I had to press return at one point on my keyboard because it was trying to save a suggested file name, and until I pressed return I couldn't move forward with things. But yeah, I think it now knows the variable. So the test now is to click run, hope for the best. Oh, it's not looking good. Oh, Gemini 1.5 Flash is not found. Cool list models. Grok never told me about this. Can I copy that to clipboard? Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Back to Grok. Skill. Python. Oh, great. Google retired Gemini 1.5 series and replaced with the newer versions like Gemini 2 and 2.5. Change the model name in your code to a current one. Best replacement is 2.5. So it's telling me that where I see this in my code, I need to instead use that. Okay, I can do that. So I'll just sort of choose a model in the comment. And then instead of that line, we can have something very similar, but it's talking about 2.5 flash rather than 1.5 flash. Click save. And go up to this. I'll show you. This is the same, I think, as me going to run and run without debugging. Select debugger, Python debugger. Makes sense. Okay, now it's doing something. Why did the Python programmer break up with the C++ programmer? They just couldn't agree on indentation. Well, although that's not a very good joke, at least I've managed to get Python to run a Gemini prompt. So that's really good. The next video I'll do will probably be me um, using Gemini 2. Well, I'm not sure, but using one of the Gemini models to run Nanobanana, which is an art generator AI belonging to Google Gemini.